I'd like you all to put your hands on your hearts and to take a deep breath. You are breathing. Your lungs are expanding. Blood is pumping through the network of veins that crisscross your internal organs. This is part of our shared human anatomy. The wiring of our bodies is part of what makes us human. But what if your body is not wired correctly? In January of 2015, I was 13 years old and starting my last semester of middle school. I was a tri-sport athlete, playing basketball, running cross country, and playing soccer. And among my biggest concerns were my upcoming math test and doing well in my basketball game. One day, I went into gym class and started running our timed 11-minute fitness test. Being a cross-country runner, I wasn't that worried, but I started to get faint about halfway through. Rather than stop running in front of my friends, I slunk into the locker room, where I promptly fainted, hitting my head on a wooden bench. 5 days later, I found myself in a cardiologist's office at the urging of my mother, even though preliminary cardiac testing had shown nothing out of the ordinary. And suddenly, my cardiologist came in and told us he had bad news. He then diagnosed me with a congenital heart defect called anomalous left coronary artery from the right coronary sinus. A mouthful, I know. In a normal heart, you have two main coronary arteries that branch off of your aorta, the left and the right, in their respective places. But in my heart, however, the left coronary artery branched out right near the right coronary artery and was actually cutting into my aorta, restricting blood flow to my heart. A study published in the Journal of American Cardiology that my doctor gave me showed that 0.047% of the population may have anomalous left coronary artery. That's about 112,000 Americans out of more than 238 million. Basically, my body was revolting against me. And one of the issues associated with anomalous left coronary artery is sudden cardiac death, especially in young athletes. To put things in perspective, my defect is normally diagnosed in autopsies. The only way I was going to survive was by having open heart surgery. My doctors were confident that I would get through the ordeal, but there was always a possibility that I could die on the table. How do you tell a 13-year-old girl that she might not make it to the next month of her life? And more importantly, what does said 13-year-old girl do with this information? I had a sort of midlife crisis at age 13, but I decided that if I lived through the ordeal, that I would decide to extend compassion into the world. 3 weeks later, a team of cardiothoracic surgeons stopped my heart, mended it, and started it again. They unroofed my artery from my aorta, but unfortunately it was too dangerous to completely reroute it. So my heart is not normal, and it never will be. As I lay in my hospital bed, listening to the methodical beat of the heart monitors, willing my battered heart to keep going, it was nearly impossible to envision a world in which I was completely healed. And unfortunately, the issues did not stop there. A day after returning home from the hospital, I fainted again. An emergency trip to the cardiologist showed that I had a condition called post-pericardiotomy syndrome, in which fluid collects in the sac lining my heart called the pericardium, inducing fever and intense chest and back pain and fatigue. Left untreated, it can cause severe and permanent damage to the heart muscle. I was worried. I didn't know what to do, and I kept my pain from my friends and family because I didn't want to play the role of the sick kid anymore. In doing this, though, I was neglecting my own healing and cutting myself off from the rest of my friends, family, and doctors. All they wanted to do was to help me. Hi, how are you? It's a common phrase, most often followed by, good, how are you? Even when we're lying about that last part. But why do we do this? Maybe it is just for the sake of politeness, but I want us, all of us, to start owning our emotions, to lean into discomfort and to let others know when we are hurting. By not letting my loved ones know what I was going through, not only was I isolating myself, but I was neglecting an inherent part of my healing trajectory, my suffering. About a year ago, I came across a quote from a book by Cheryl Strayed called Brave Enough. that perfectly characterized what 3 years of learning how to deal with my pain had led me to believe. She wrote, "When you recognize that you will thrive not in spite of your losses and sorrows, but because of them, that you would not have chosen the things that happened in your life, but you are grateful for them, that you will hold the empty bowls eternally in your hands, but you also have the capacity to fill them, the word for that is healing." So I decided to filling my own empty bowls. I found that the first way to start to heal was through art. My neighbor and a professional artist named Claire taught me to transfer my emotions onto canvas by letting abstract paintbrushes tell the story of my trauma. After I made abstract acrylic backgrounds, I would layer figure studies, flowers, tessellations, and, you guessed it, anatomical hearts onto them. The 3 paintings that I've just shown you constitute a study of my own healing, which I titled Rebirth. The next way I decided to start healing was by isolating gratitude, like I had decided to do before my surgery. I had started writing in a journal at the beginning of 2015 as a New Year's resolution, but after surgery, I decided to write down 3 things I was grateful for at the end of every entry. Of course, the first few months were replete with, "I'm grateful for my mended heart," and the like. But events as arbitrary as, "I had a really good bagel this morning," or "I was able to run for 5 minutes without stopping," allowed me to isolate little miracles. Of course, not every day was easy. I had days when I didn't feel like I was mending. I had days when all I wanted to do was to be back on the soccer field instead of connected to tubes and wires trying to figure out why my body was still revolting against me. But isolating these little miracles allowed me to be grateful for them, when all I was going to do those couple months ago, the only reason I was alive was because I had fainted on the day that I was supposed to have died. The third and final way I started to heal boils down to one simple word: compassion. When I was in the cardiac ICU, the only thing I could eat was vanilla soft serve ice cream. The hospital cafeteria did not have it, but my favorite nurse got $3 out of her wallet, went down to the second floor cafeteria, and bought it for me. The compassion of those $3 far outweighs their monetary value. You see, the thing about children's hospitals are they are a place of incredible miracles, but also of profound sadness. Despite my long road after surgery, I was still one of the healthiest people in the hospital. The room next to me belonged to that of a 4-month-old girl born with half a heart. She had to get a transplant within the month, or else her life would end before it really began. Profound sadness. So once I got out of the hospital, I decided to extend the simple compassion that my nurse showed me. It was about a week until Valentine's Day, so I made some Valentines for the kids at my local hospital. It's become a tradition, and I completed my 5th year of it just 3 days ago. The last way, eventually connecting with compassion took me around the world. In a snap decision in 2017, I decided to travel to Nepal to work with a non-governmental organization called The Small World, whose mission is to empower women and girls through education. I had suffered serious autoinflammatory disorders connected with post-pericardium syndrome the year before, but with a tentative blessing from my doctors, I traveled to Nepal and was surrounded by citizens who were compassionate and empathetic, working to better the lives of those around them by building schools. And then, 2 years, 5 months, and 22 days after my initial diagnosis, I scaled the top of a mountain nestled in the Himalayan foothills of Nepal. Standing there 15,000 feet above sea level, breathing in the thin, cold air, I felt my heart start to heal. Now, I'm not saying you have to travel 8,000 miles to facilitate healing, even though this was a transformative experience for me. Because the truth is that compassion is everywhere if you choose to isolate it. I'd like you all to raise your hands if you've ever experienced any type of pain. That's about everybody in this room. We all go through different types of pain. Pain as simple as not getting invited to a party, to earth-shattering suffering, such as losing a loved one or dealing with mental illness. Unfortunately, I don't have a set formula for healing from pain, but we can all contribute to each other's healing. We can all start to build communities of compassion to let others heal together. I still have days where my healing isn't working, but gradually my heart has grown stronger and my bones have fused back together. I'm even back to playing competitive athletics. I am still healing, physically, mentally, emotionally, but we all are. This commonality should bring us together so we can learn to mend collectively, whether that is through the support of a community, by isolating gratitude, and extending compassion outward. So own your sorrows. They are valid. Find gratitude in the simple truths of existence. They aren't guaranteed. And practice extending compassion to others so we can all learn to mend collectively. Because the truth is that we are all human, united by certain characteristics like pain. But we are also united in healing. Thank you.